Hi, my name is Sheila Corona. Welcome to, both channels, New Light Streaming Love and Sassy Seer Sheila. I will be uploading this to both. Immediately following my live this morning, I happened to see this in my email from AstroButterfly, and I knew the moment I saw it that I have to record it. So I haven't read it yet for myself because if today is Wednesday, March the 26th, 2025, and if you haven't seen that live, you probably wouldn't understand why I know I have to record this. But it's very interesting that this came into my field immediately upon finishing that live. So the name of this is Astrology of Neptune in Aries 2025 through 2039, a new chapter. On March the 30th, 2025, history is made. Neptune enters Aries. Neptune's shift into a new sign marks the beginning of an epic chapter in our life. Neptune stays about 14 years in a sign. So we only get to experience a few Neptune ingresses during our lifespan. This is big. Not only does Neptune change signs, it moves from Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac, to enter Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. Zero Aries is a very potent and important point in the zodiac as it marks the beginning of everything. 0 degrees of Aries is arguably the most important of all 360 degrees. For Neptune, it marks the beginning of a new 165-year cycle around the sun. Neptune is one of the three outer planets. The others are Uranus and Pluto. When outer planets change signs, we're talking about big fundamental shifts. When we look at outer planetary transits, we look at collective turning points that impact all the aspects of our lives. In this context, Pluto is not just, quote, power. Neptune is not just, quote, spirituality. Outer planets move through signs. Outer planets' movements through signs represent generational trends that affect pretty much every area of our life. Of course, the outer planet will express the themes of the sign it's in its own archetypal way. With Neptune in Pisces, we've seen an emphasis on Piscean themes like interconnectivity, spiritual unity, and the idea that we are all one, a vast, boundless, melting pot of dreams, ideals, and illusions. And how does this Piscean emphasis show up in a Neptune way? By dissolving borders. If we were to think of one important theme that aligned with Neptune's stay in Pisces in the past 14 years, that theme is globalization. Pisces is the ocean, limitless, boundless, no borders. So Neptune in Pisces amplified the feeling of no boundaries. Here are the key themes that emerged during Neptune's transit through Pisces. Neptune dissolves borders. We saw more emphasis on acceptance, open borders, increased migration, and multicultural integration. The internet, social media, and e-commerce exploded, creating a borderless digital world where anyone could connect, share, and sell globally. The rise of remote work, the gig economy, and digital nomadism led to breaking traditional job structures and national work identities. Streaming platforms like Netflix, Spotify, YouTube erased boundaries of media consumption. People from different countries began consuming the same content, blurring cultural lines. Neptune in Aries 2025 to 2039, from globalization to sovereignty. So, how will these Neptunian themes evolve when Neptune leaves Pisces and enters Aries? If Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, associated with dissolution, surrender, and the collective, Aries is the first sign, the individual, the spark of life. Aries is where we emerge into this world and take our first breath. Oh my gosh. I just got through talking about emerging consciousness in that reading. Here, the focus is to assert ourselves, define who we are, find our identity, and survive. If Pisces is the energy that dissolves boundaries, the ocean, quote, we're all in this together, Aries is the this is me energy. I'm a unique individual, and I'm going to find what makes me different from you. On a personal level, our focus will shift from seeking connection with something greater, Pisces, to a focus on selfhood, reshaping our identity, discovering our purpose, and stepping into a more active role in our lives. What does that mean? Less watching, receiving, drifting, which are Pisces. More doing, asserting, creating, Aries. Less blind faith, Pisces. More about becoming the hero of our own journey, Aries. At a global level, Neptune in Aries marks a potential shift from globalization, which is Pisces, to autonomy and sovereignty, which is Aries. Institutions, people, and nations will begin to rediscover their unique identity, which can result in new political positioning, redrawn borders, and a redefinition of national and personal purpose. Boy, can't we see that now? The approach will be less about global connectivity, such as operating through an open borders or one world framework, and more about establishing or reclaiming what sets us apart. This can lead to nationalist movements, local first economies, and missions driven by personal or cultural authenticity. This new emphasis can also bring a resurgence of traditions, not necessarily in a nostalgic Cancerian, quote, return to the past sense, but more from an Aries place of fierce pride and individuation. Quote, this is my DNA. This is me. Beyond blurring lines, hyperconnectivity. In terms of trends, we may see more boutique, identity-driven expressions in music, cinema, and culture. Less formulaic one-size-fits-all blockbusters or mass-market entertainment, and more raw, bold, personal, and niche content. Creators may care less about global relatability and more about authentic self-expression. Boy, I see that to be true right there. Aries is also about discovery, and in a Neptune sense, this could point to exploration of new dimensions of reality, including space travel, deep sea exploration, and new frontiers in consciousness. These could become hallmark themes of Neptune in Aries. Another likely trend, quote, going off grid, not just for homes, but for people. Personal finances, resources, healthcare, education. Many will feel called to opt out of systems they no longer trust and build self-sufficiency. Wow, I do see this happening already. I'm on my own won't feel isolating. It will feel empowering. With Neptune in Aries, trust in institutions erodes. DIY culture, decentralized tech, and sovereign communities rise. Aries is also the sign of warfare. War, metaphorically or literally, is often how borders are maintained or redefined. Anything that threatens the sense of individuality or freedom can trigger Aries' instinct to push back. Does Neptune in Aries mean more war? Not necessarily, though conflict, protest, and resistance may become more common as people and nations fight to reclaim or redefine their sovereignty. But this desire to reclaim autonomy doesn't have to be violent. It can take creative, conscious forms. A promising signature of this transit is that Neptune will form a harmonious minor triangle with Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini, a rare configuration that suggests that Neptune in Aries could channel its energy into visionary, constructive innovation. Like with any major ingress, there will be a period of adjustment. Almost all outer planetary ingresses come with a sense of initial chaos or disorientation. Ooh, I wonder if that's what I've been feeling already. That's interesting. But we'll start to see the true flavor of Neptune in Aries fairly quickly when Saturn joins Neptune in Aries in May of 2025. To recap, the transit of Neptune in Aries will likely lead to a paradigm shift from the Piscean age of connectivity and globalization to an Aries age of localism, sovereignty, and decentralized power. We're already seeing this in the deglobalization of supply chains, the rise of identity-based politics, and the fragmentation of mass systems into smaller, more personal networks. In the broader context of other outer planetary shifts, like Pluto and Aquarius, we can see that the old corporate institutional model is breaking down. More people are turning to independent work, online businesses, and personal brands. Self-sovereignty and financial independence are becoming the new aspirational goals. Neptune in Aries, don't make false idols. Neptune carries the tendency to idealize and ultimately to polarize. We may idealize a leader, a romantic partner, or a friend to the point where we follow them blindly. For example, Charles Manson. The more we idealize someone, the more our suppressed, often negative qualities get dumped and projected onto someone else, who then becomes the villain in our story. They become the, quote, bad character, the one to be feared, hated, or punished. And this is a dangerous predicament because it creates good versus bad, light versus dark, hero versus villain scenarios where people act according to a black and white, us versus them dichotomy, rather than dealing with the messy, nuanced reality of human nature. As the Neptunian fog lifts, we begin to see that there's no such thing as someone who is purely good, and no such thing as someone who is purely bad either. Idealizing someone, following everything they say, think, or do without discernment, is how we fall into the trap of false idols. The second commandment of the Bible, quote, you shall not make for yourself an idol, end quote, Exodus 20:4, can be understood psychologically as a warning against misplaced attachment, external validation, and the illusion of permanence in a constantly changing world. This commandment is not just about religious idols. It speaks to a universal human tendency, the urge to assign meaning, identity, and security to external people, objects, or ideologies at the expense of inner truth and spiritual autonomy. When we are under Neptune's spell, we are often blind. We don't see people, missions, or projects for what they truly are. We see them as we want them to be. In Neptune's fantasy, an idol is not just admired. They're sanctified. They're perfect. They cannot have flaws. They cannot make mistakes. Refusing to see the absolutely normal and human, less desirable side of someone means that even when the idol says things that don't align with our values or does things that seem off, we reframe them. We rationalize. We justify. Because, of course, the idol must be perfect. This is cognitive dissonance at work. When they do something obviously wrong or hurtful, we twist the story to say it must be someone else's fault. In this scenario, not only is everything the idol does justified, but all the negative traits we don't want to see in them have to go somewhere. And so, someone else becomes the epitome of evil, the scapegoat. We see this in movies, but we also see it in real life, in sports, when we idealize our team and demonize the opponent, in celebrity culture and politics. The idol gets into conflict, and suddenly the audience splits. Under Neptune's haze, there's the good guy, the hero, and the bad guy, the villain. But is that reality, or are we caught in our own Neptunian false idol trap? What's really going on here? Neptune, escapism and outsourced moral compass. At its core, making false idols is an escapist mechanism, which is very Pisces, a way to avoid confronting the duality within ourselves. Like any human being, we have both what society calls negative and positive traits. The spiritual ideal is to integrate those parts into wholeness and express the best possible version of ourselves without denying or rejecting the rest. But the process of individuation is hard. So instead of doing the inner work, we play it out externally. We split off parts of ourselves and project them onto others. We idolize those who reflect our light and demonize those who reflect our shadow. The false idol, the person we blindly admire and follow, is actually a mirror of our highest potential. Those idealized qualities aren't bad. They're clues about who we could become. But the idol is false because it's built on the illusion that the bad can be stripped away, that perfection is attainable. Perfection doesn't exist, at least not in this 3D flesh and bones reality, and that can be a hard pill to swallow, especially since there's a part of us that does remember something divine, something beyond all this, and longs for it. But if we truly want to evolve, we must stop looking outside and instead start within. With Neptune and Aries, we're invited to become our own source of spiritual authority and reclaim spiritual autonomy. When we realize that we alone are responsible for our beliefs, ideals, and aspirations, we are no longer easily deceived, disappointed, or disillusioned by others because we understand that our projections create the good versus bad, hero versus villain dynamic. The world is what it is, too complex and layered to fully understand. It's our rose-colored or fear-tainted glasses that filter what we perceive, not reality itself. Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. While Venus is about our personal values, Neptune attempts to universalize those values, it filters the world through a spiritual, moral, or idealistic lens. But that same lens can become a veil. Neptune, compassion for our imperfect humanity. When Neptune moves from Pisces to Aries, we are being asked to own our Neptune, to stop outsourcing belief, meaning, and truth, and find it within ourselves. We will look less outside for leaders, idols, and saviors, and more within, where it all begins. We will become our own, quote, personal Jesus. That's not to say Neptune in Aries means the end of leadership or admiration. The world will still have presidents, icons, heroes, and commanders in chief. But maybe we'll stop treating them as gods or as devils and start seeing them for what they are: human, with gifts and flaws. And maybe we'll also start doing the same for ourselves, accepting and finding compassion for our own imperfect humanity, our own imperfect humanity. No, it doesn't say imperfect. It said, yes, it did, imperfect humanity. And there's a quote here from John Steinbeck's East of Eden. And now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good. Neptune in Aries, 2025 to 2039, the transits. Just before it emerges in the raw fire of Aries, Neptune conjuncts Mercury at 29 degrees 59 arc minutes Pisces. What are the odds of having a conjunction at the very last degree, the very last minute of the zodiac? Very, very small. Yet, this is happening. So chances are we will receive a very important message, something that seals the outcome of a very important chapter in our lives. Mercury has already been in Aries, infused with the energy of this new beginning Neptune is about to step into. But due to its retrograde, it slides back into Pisces, and literally within minutes of re-entering Pisces at 29 degrees 59 arc minutes, Mercury meets Neptune, which is just about to leave the sign. It's like a passing of the torch moment. But what's being passed down? An important insight, message, or piece of spiritual intelligence that might change everything. Something we didn't necessarily see coming, or if we did, we didn't believe it could actually manifest. And then, after this sacred meeting with Mercury, Neptune makes its way into Aries with a completely new tone, mission, and momentum. Sound cinematic? That's just the beginning. Neptune's entrance into Aries is truly spectacular because, especially in the early phase of its transit, it becomes involved in some rare and powerful planetary configurations. Neptune enters Aries on March 30th, 2025, and stays in Aries until October 22nd, 2025, when it briefly retrogrades back into Pisces for one final goodbye. It then returns to Aries on January 26th, 2026, and remains there until March of 2039. Soon after its initial ingress into Aries, Saturn also enters Aries. However, the two planets don't actually conjunct in 2025 because Saturn goes retrograde at 1 degree Aries, slipping back into Pisces just before Neptune does. But Saturn and Neptune do eventually meet and form the much anticipated conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries on February 20th, 2026. Before, we talked about the odds of having Mercury and Neptune conjunct at the very last minute of Pisces, the end of the zodiac. Now again, what are the odds of two slow-moving planets meeting at the very first degree of the zodiac, 0 Aries? The cosmic reset button? This is starting to look like a finely orchestrated cosmic handover. We are witnessing a major new beginning, a closure, a reset. The world is about to shift in ways we can't even imagine yet. In the first years of Neptune's transit through Aries, 2025 to roughly 2029, Neptune is part of a supportive configuration called a minor triangle alongside Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius. This is significant because Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are the heavyweight change makers. When these three outer planets form a harmonious aspect, we know we're in good cosmic hands. So having all three in cooperative dialogue is definitely encouraging. More on this important minor triangle in a dedicated write-up. Neptune will continue its sextile to Pluto all the way through 2032, an aspect that only happens about once every 100 years. This long-lasting sextile helps maintain spiritual regeneration and visionary reform as core themes of this era. Other notable Neptune transits while in Aries. From 2033 to 2034, Neptune square Saturn in Cancer, 19 to 22 degrees Aries in Cancer. Themes of internal tension between individual identity, which is Aries, and emotional security family structures, which is Cancer, could manifest as clashes between personal freedom and social expectations. 2036 to 2037, Neptune trine Saturn in Leo, a more constructive period where vision, which is Neptune, and discipline, which is Saturn, come together to support creative leadership, inspired structure, and heart-driven purpose. 2039, Neptune trine Jupiter in Leo at 29 degrees Aries, Leo. A beautiful send-off, visionary optimism, spiritual expansion, and the potential to embrace our unique, heroic journey, individually and collectively. Neptune in Aries, the outer context. While we will have a dedicated write-up for the Neptune-Pluto-Uranus minor triangle, let's talk a bit about Neptune in Aries in the broader context of all the outer planets' changing signs. Understanding that Neptune in Aries is not a shift of its own, but a puzzle piece in a larger planetary choreography will help us understand its mandate in a more nuanced way. On a day-to-day basis, we might pay attention to new and full moons or Mercury retrogrades, the everyday currents in life. However, it's the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, that act as transformative forces shaping collective evolution. The outer planets are the, quote, puppeteers behind the scenes. If we want to know how we feel today, we look at the moon or Venus. But if we want to understand what era we're living in and what deep changes are underway, we look at Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. What's absolutely extraordinary and statistically quite astounding is that all three outer planets change signs within a very short time frame. Pluto entered Aquarius in 2024. Neptune follows, entering Aries in March 2025. And Uranus enters Gemini in July 2025. Saturn also enters Aries that same year, further emphasizing the Neptune in Aries mandate of restructuring identity, will, and responsibility. To understand the interplay between Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, we need to consider the outer planets' quote, hierarchy of influence. The premise here is that the farther away a planet is from the sun, the slower it moves, the longer it spends in a sign, and the deeper and more foundational its influence becomes. Following this framework, Pluto is the farthest of the three, spending roughly 20 years in each sign. It sets the evolutionary tone. Neptune follows, spending about 14 years in a sign. It defines the vision or spiritual climate. Uranus, the fastest of the three, spends about 7 years in each sign. It manifests change through disruption, innovation, and awakening. In this archetypal flow, Pluto sets the scene, the deeper why. Neptune infuses the vision, or the what. Uranus delivers the tools and technology, the how. We could think of Pluto as why, Neptune as what, and Uranus as how. Why? Pluto in Aquarius 2024 to 2044. The overarching agenda of this new era is a shift from top-down centralized systems to bottom-up decentralized empowerment. Pluto in Aquarius is dismantling hierarchical power structures, breaking apart outdated institutions and ideologies. The goal? A world where power is distributed, where networks, communities, and individuals become the new engines of change. The next 2 decades will be focused on empowering people, not just systems. What? Neptune in Aries, 2025 to 2039. To support this revolution, Neptune in Aries awakens the sovereign self. It encourages us to reclaim agency, rediscover our identity, and take spiritual ownership of our path. Neptune in Aries shifts us from passive absorption, which is Pisces, to active participation. This is the call to become the hero of our own story, to find truth, not in dogma, but in direct experience. The dream is no longer abstract, it's embodied. How? Uranus in Gemini, 2025 to 2033. Uranus now steps in as the technological facilitator. As people awaken and reclaim their power, Uranus in Gemini revolutionizes communication, learning, and movement. New technologies will reshape how we connect, learn, and collaborate. Uranus in Gemini will likely bring us decentralized peer-to-peer systems, AI-generated learning, and borderless collaboration. Uranus in Gemini will redefine mobility, media, and education, not through traditional infrastructure, but through light-speed connectivity, immersive knowledge sharing, and agile, decentralized communities. The very way we perceive, quote, distance, authority, and information will change. To recap, Pluto sets the agenda. Neptune infuses it with meaning, and Uranus brings it to life. In this symphony of planetary shifts, the future is no longer dictated from above. It emerges from the ground up, built by individuals who are empowered, informed, and interconnected in radically new ways. As Neptune begins its journey through Pisces, it's not just ushering in a new chapter, it's joining forces with outer planets to rewrite the script entirely. The universe will press the reset button. Wow. And there's also Neptune in Aries crossing the threshold, the Sabian symbols. What better tool to help us reflect on this transit than the mysterious, imaginative, and Neptunian-like Sabian symbols? Now, those of you that have been following me a while know that I just love Laura Walker Oracle Report. That's where I learned about the Sabian symbols. To support this, the what? Neptune in Aries. Wait a minute, here we go. I skipped over. The overarching agenda. Wait a minute. Did something slip? How did I accidentally? Okay, yeah, I did. Here we go. Let's turn to the symbolic messages of the last degree of Pisces and the first degree of Aries to gather further clues about this monumental shift. The cusp between Pisces and Aries, one of the most significant thresholds in the zodiac, is the Alpha and the Omega. the end and the beginning of the entire zodiac cycle. 30 Pisces, the Sabian symbol for 30 Pisces is, quote, a majestic rock formation resembling a face idealized by a boy who takes it as his ideal of greatness, and as he grows up, begins to look like it. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Sabian symbols, I think it was in the 20s or the 30s, a disabled psychic by the name of Elsie Wheeler, I believe it was tasked by someone as she did a channeling. They had all 360 degrees of the zodiac written on index cards. And she did not know which degrees was what. They just took a card at random and she channeled a symbol, what she was seeing in her head. And this is what that is. So what I just read here was what she channeled for 30 degrees of Pisces. A majestic rock formation resembling a face is idealized by a boy who takes it as his ideal of greatness, and as he grows up, begins to look like it. This Sabian symbol speaks to the power of ideals and visions. It suggests that what we admire, project onto, or worship can slowly shape us over time. Our longings and aspirations don't just live in our minds. They sculpt who we become. After we've traveled all the way through the zodiac and reached the very end of our soul's journey, we've accumulated insight, myth, belief, and archetypal longing. And now we are faced with the question, what do we carry forward? Of course, the final degree of Pisces is not merely, quote, the end, but a threshold, a final merging of form and formlessness before we step into a new incarnation of self. This is where the old dissolves, but also where the seed of the new takes shape. 1 degree of Aries, the Sabian symbol for that is, quote, a woman has risen out of the ocean. A seal is embracing her. This is a powerful birth image, the emergence of individual consciousness from the collective unconscious. A spark of identity is being born out of the vast Piscean ocean of unity, dreams, and spirit. It's primal, raw, instinctive, and infused with vital life force. The woman rising represents the first flicker of, quote, I am, the soul taking form. The seal, a creature of both land and sea, reminds us that even in our becoming, we remain connected to where we've come from. We do not enter Aries empty. We emerge from the ocean of Pisces transformed, still wet from the waters of what was, but ready to define who we are. To work with these Sabian symbols, close your eyes and visualize the 2 Sabian symbols. First, the majestic rock formation and the woman rising from the ocean embraced by the seal. Let these images speak and simply observe any thoughts, feelings, or subtle insights that arise. These messages carry your own Neptune, as you prepare to cross this powerful threshold. Neptune in Aries natal chart influence. At an individual level, this is an incredibly significant shift. Neptune moves out of a house or area of life that has been in focus for the past 14 years and enters a completely new terrain. What once felt like the dominant theme in your life will begin to fade, and a new area of life will gently come into focus. Perhaps this is why I've been feeling so weird. Neptune is where we are asked to reinvent, surrender, and allow the current of life to carry us to new places. Good Lord, if you had just heard that reading I did. Neptune is where change happens, not always through dramatic events like Pluto or Uranus might bring, but through a subtle, ongoing rewiring of how we perceive, value, and engage with that area of life. Neptune slowly transforms us from within, so we find deeper alignment with what we truly value, even if we can't put it into words. For example, if Neptune in Pisces has been transiting your 10th house, your ideas around career, public image, and success may have subtly morphed. Back in 2011, when Neptune first entered Pisces and your 10th house, you might have defined success in more conventional or image-driven terms, holding a prestigious job title, being known as, quote, the entertainer of the group, quote, the perfect mom, or, quote, the respected lawyer. But by the end of this Neptune transit, you may discover that what brings you true fulfillment looks and feels completely different. If you look back, perhaps there was no single defining moment when your values shifted. It was more like a series of gentle waves, reshaping your shoreline little by little. That's how Neptune works. It seduces you into evolution, often without you even realizing it, until one day you're standing on different ground. Now that Neptune enters a whole new sign, now that Neptune enters a new whole sign house in your chart, the same process will begin, only in a new area of life. For example, if it's your 11th house, the focus may turn to your social networks, communities, hopes, and ideals for the future. This will be a long, dreamlike unfolding. And while Neptune never gives us a clear map, we can still set an intention and ask the universe, how can I remain open to a spiritual reimagining of this part of my life? What are my ideal visions in this domain? What truly matters to me here, and how might that change? The sign change from Pisces to Aries is also crucial. If in the past 14 years our Neptunian process was more receptive, allowing insight to flow through dreams, surrender, or stillness, Neptune in Aries now calls for engagement. Aries wants to act, initiate, and carve its own path. So, in this next chapter, the transformation will come through participation, through doing, through being willing to step into the unknown with courage. The house Neptune is transiting in your chart will play a central role because that's where this inner reorientation will unfold over time. And the aspects Neptune makes to your natal planets during this journey will offer additional layers, highlighting moments of confusion, revelation, release, or inspiration. Pay attention to those moments. They're not random. They're part of a divine arc. As Neptune prepares to cross the threshold and begin a new 165-year cycle around the zodiac, ask yourself, where in my life do I need to press the reset button? Where am I ready to let go of old illusions and make space for a truer dream to take form? In the midst of chaos and the midst of Neptune's ocean, what new chapter is silently emerging? Let your inner compass guide you toward that answer. While Neptune never gives clear directions, it always leaves clues for those who listen with the heart. And then she asks that you subscribe to her newsletter, as do I, because I am not always nudged to record and share her work like I was today. And also, I want to also call your attention to the fact that she has an astrology course that I myself cannot take advantage of. I wish I could. But she does. She has beginner levels, upper beginner levels, intermediate levels, and advanced levels for folks to take advantage of. And so there is a link, and I will be placing a link to this article in the Show More section. And as I said, I highly recommend that you go to her site, take a look around, and take advantage of all that she has to offer that you are in a position to make available to yourself. So, wow, especially after that reading that I just did. This was a lot, I know. So I hope that you will, I hope this was helpful for you. And I hope you will go and sign up for her free newsletter. And I also hope that you will move towards that brings you joy in each moment that presents itself to you. It is just a matter of a perspective and your perception of that perspective. Until we meet again, my friends, be well.